Practice. Okay.
Hello. Welcome to the Psychic Eye Mysteries podcast number 2. We survived the first one.
We did.
I know, right? Like it was probably a close call. We've upgraded our sound. So if you notice a huge difference between the first podcast and the second podcast, that is not an accident. Or is it your ear? It's not your ears either. Oh, I got to start the stopwatch. We're just we're winging it. If you haven't noticed, like it's totally, neither one of us knows what we're doing. We're just like, hit the record button and then upload it. So, super sophisticated over here. I expect after a couple hundred of these, hopefully I'll get the gig, get it down. So again, joining me is my adored sister. Is my bitch sister, because she just rolled her eyes. Sandy bitch. No, I love her. I really lucked out in the sister department. I gotta say, she really is just so near and dear to my heart. We talk almost every day. And this is so not her gig either. She's like, public? What? No. And she jumped on board and she's been doing all of the research for these podcasts, and she's just been invaluable. She's been so awesome.
And let's just be clear, I'm nothing like Kat in the Kat Gilly
You're
series.
everything. You are like so the inspiration for Kat. So the inspiration. Not as crazy, but smart, loving, bossy. little bossy, tiny bit bossy.
I don't even know where that's coming from.
What? Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So we kind of have a little bit of an update for those of you who caught the first podcast. I don't know if it's an update or not, but I was talking to Sandy after the first podcast, which was the Servant Girl Annihilator, single guy. That was last week's podcast. And we were chatting the next day, and I said, as I was talking about my impressions, I kept getting the initial S, like S as in Samson. And Sandy, inhaled a breath. She's like, as you said, I was thinking of the initial S. She said, I heard in my mind Samson. So that for me was like, oh, okay, cool. All right, we're on to something there. So I tasked my fans on my Facebook fan page, fans of Victoria Laurie, in case you're wondering, to see what they could dig up. And a very astute fan, familiar with researching all sorts of, amazing connections and family trees and all of that, came up with, in a slave registry in 1860, the name Samson Alexander. Which I thought was really interesting, because that would have put him, if he was born in 1860, that would have put him in exactly the kind of right age that I sort of saw in 1884. He would have been right around 24 years old, so mid-20s. I don't know if he did it, and I certainly don't want to accuse this man or have his family tree upset at me, his descendants upset at me, but it kind of just rings a bell with me. And then in a later census, there was also Samson Anderson and G.W. Samson. But I kind of feel it's the first one. I kind of feel like there's something there. There's a there. So that's just an update on that one. We love to think that we're solving these crimes, super sleuthing our way through it. And today's case took place in Boston. Sandy's got a personal history with this one, and after we had discussed it yesterday, she was all worried that because potentially the killer is still alive, and so she's like, do you think he's going to come after me? And I'm like, yes he is, because there's nothing out there on the interwebs about him at all, and then he's of course going to go after the sister of the psychic who kind of nailed his ass to the wall. But that's okay. Sandy has nothing. We do not have anything to worry about. So we're all good. We're all good up in here. These are just theories. It's for entertainment purposes only. We're not necessarily accusing anyone. We're just saying, we kind of think this person did it. So, okay. So, because, I've got you all kind of captive audience here. I like to take the opportunity to kind of promote the books, which, is that's my other gig, is writing. And this podcast was actually inspired by the Psychic Eye Mysteries series, book series. So I thought I'd start with the first book this time, which is Abby Cooper's Psychic Eye. And for those of you who are not familiar with the series or the book, Abby Cooper is a 30-something young woman, professional psychic living in suburban city of Royal Oak, Michigan. And she lives a life that's kind of like vanilla ice cream. It's good enough, but a little bland. Her work as a PI, psychic intuitive, can be rewarding, but she feels like somehow she's missing out on the hot fudge topping. In this first book, the Abster is getting what she wished for when a client winds up dead and the clues start pointing in Abby's direction. Turns out she knows too many details about the murder for her own good. To make matters worse, the hot blind date she just met is the lead investigator on the case, and gorgeous Detective Dutch Rivers is convinced she's a fraud. No matter how great her psychic abilities, Abby doesn't know if she can solve this case. Unfortunately for her, though, the killer thinks she can. So check it out. I was also talking to Stance about, I wrote that book in 2003.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Sandy, we're old.
No, I am not. If you want to claim to be old, that's fine by me, but I am not old.
I like that. Yeah. Okay. All right, sweetheart. So back in 2003, this was my very first book that I ever had published, and I knew nothing about the publishing industry. And even today, 20 years later, I know just a tiny bit more about it. It's a pretty complex system. And no one tells you anything, really. I've written 36 books and no one ever tells you anything. They just kind of expect you to know like everything. So for that first book, I got a $5,000 advance. Woo! I was in the money. And that's kind of average, actually. That's pretty normal. So these people who are, I love the Hallmark Channel where, oh, I got a book contract. It's $1 million. That does not happen, people. That happens like one literally in a million. So I got this $5,000 advance and I was really nervous about whether or not my book would make it or not. So I remember asking my agent, Jim, I said, what is a successful book? Like, what's the marker for a successful book? And he said, if it earns $5,001. And I'm like, oh, really? Oh, that's okay. And this book I think it's sold about 250,000 copies. I think it's sold about 250,000 copies so far. So,
you've made $5,010.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes, exactly. I'm rolling in it from this book, people.
$5,010.
I need a snow shovel just to shovel up all those royalties. Woo!
Those pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, most people don't know. Like, we average in the mass market paperback, we average about 57 cents a copy. So, you might be paying $8 for it, but the actual author, or the person who put in all of the work, 98% of the work, thank you, editors, 98% of the work is getting less than $1. So this is why it's important to support us and buy our books if you like us, and write good reviews for us too. That helps a lot too. Or you can write bad reviews. It doesn't matter.
Good reviews.
I have my fair share. Haters gonna hate. That's okay. It's all good. So I have a couple cool anecdotes to talk about with a couple of readings that I've done recently. This whole mediumship thing is so new to me. And I feel honestly when I'm getting the information, because it's all charades, there's really no speaking. If I get a name, it's like a feeling like, say the name, right? It's not necessarily a voice that's talking to me. It's kind of like, say the name. Okay. So I get the feeling like I'm compelled to say a certain name, and I don't like being wrong. And
I have not noticed this.
I know I hide it so well.
It's not a family trait. Let's just be clear.
Exactly. No, we don't know where this comes. What, Jean? What? No, missed us. Totally missed us.
Never wrong.
We're so patient too. That's another one. Yeah.
That's a big quality in our family. Yeah.
We're saints.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, love being wrong. And I'm a very good psychic, and this whole mediumship stuff is so new, and it's so frustrating to be really good on the one hand and just kind of learning as I go along on the mediumship side. And I get far more frustrated myself than I think my clients get, because most of the hits actually are really kind of mind blowing. They're really like so specific, so on point, and it's so fucking cool. Which is why I'm keeping on. I'm not giving it up. I'm just going to continue to try and learn. Flounder here and there, but I'm going to continue to press forward, even though it makes me uncomfortable, especially when I miss. So the name thing, I'm trying to work on the name thing. I was kind of upset last night because I had 4 readings in a row, and the names just weren't necessarily, there were some that were right on, some that like nailed it, and others that just didn't hit. They just didn't land. I'm like, I know this person is saying this name, or this, I'm compelled to say this name. And it just, my clients were racking their brains and couldn't place it. And so I was getting frustrated. And so I kind of, in my mind, yelled out to the other side and said, you guys got to do better. You guys got to like do better with the initial or whatever. So I had an older gentleman come in, and he died 40 years ago, was the father of my client. And he put in my mind's eye the M in the McDonald's, the Golden Arches, put the M, like my name starts with, and I think his name was like Michael or something. And so I'm like, I'm seeing the M from the McDonald's arch, and the old timey McDonald's, not even like, 1 billion served, not the new one, right? The old one. And I thought that was super, super clever. And then just some of the other, stuff that they put in my mind is it's like so fascinating. So I had another client whose mother crossed over, and she was bedridden, I think, for the last 2 to 3 years of her life, and was so happy on the other side. And this is the other kind of great joy about doing this work, is that you get to tap into kind of the lives that people are leading on the other side, and they're having a blast. Like they are, doing all sorts of fun things over there. So this woman, the mom came through, really, really strong energy, and everything was hitting, everything was nailing, it was fantastic. And then she put in my mind's eye the jukebox from Happy Days. And I had the feeling like she was dancing in front of the jukebox from Happy Days. And I almost said, it sounds like the jitterbug. And so I said to my client, I said, she's showing me that she's dancing in front of the jukebox from Happy Days. And my client was like, oh my God. She said that one of the last things I said to my mom was, when you get to the other side, go dancing. Because she loved to dance, and she loved music from the 50s, and that she loved the jitterbug. So like stuff like that is so specific, and it's so just fucking cool,
Well, the other one that really surprised me when you were sharing it with me the other day was the woman that you did a reading for, and you kept insisting that her mother had passed away. And she was like, no, my mom's alive.
Yeah.
So go ahead and share that.
So
that was really cool.
I didn't know this. I didn't know, okay, so here's the deal. I am friends with quite a few really world-renowned mediums. They're amazing, amazing, amazing. Been at this a lot longer than I have. I remember Rebecca Rosen, good friend of mine. Look her up, she's amazing. She was doing a reading once, very small group of us kind of sitting there. And in the reading, she brought in a young girl, and everything hit for this woman's sister who had been hit by a car and was in a coma and not expected to live. Down to like, I remember the woman was an artist and she loved to draw birds. Like it was so specific. And I remember thinking like, I had no idea that people that still had a heartbeat, could communicate from the other side. So, I'm reading for this woman, a couple nights ago. And, the way that parents come in, they come in like literally like right at you, kind of just a little bit above sort of hat level, right? They come in and, they line up, which I think is also fascinating. They line up similar to how bride and groom families line up in church.
Oh, okay.
So mom's side of the family on the right, dad's side of the family on the left, right? Which I just think that sort of representation to give to me as like, this is how we're coming in, this is how we're presenting ourselves to you, so
Yeah.
that it's easy to differentiate which side of the family, mom on the right, dad on the left. I think it's just so clever. I wouldn't think of that, right? I wouldn't think of that, but it's like they line up kind of how they line up in church. Mom's side on the right, dad's side on the left. Anyway, so this woman came in on mom's side, right above my head. Okay, so that's mom. All right, could be mom-in-law, but like I really felt it was mom. So I'm like, I think this is your mom. She's like, well, my mom's still alive. I'm like, okay. And she kept showing me an L. She's like, L, say L. And then my client's name was Linda. And I'm like, are you the only Linda? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, God, she keeps connecting me to the L. She's like, I'm connected to the L. I'm connected to the L. And then she showed me a B. She's like, L and B, L and B. And so I'm like, okay, well, who's the B? And she said, well, my brother's name is Barney. And I'm like,
Wow.
okay. So she's connected to the L and the B, right? The Linda and the Barney. And I couldn't figure it out. And then this woman showed me, literally, I had the feeling of walking on a cruise ship deck. And the air was balmy, and sunny. And, I felt like, walking around on the Love Boat, basically. And I've never been on a cruise ship, but like, it was very clear to me that this was the deck of a cruise ship. And so I said, what, are you going to take a cruise? What's the deal with the cruise ship? And she said, Victoria, she goes, I really think this is actually my mom. So my dear friend, Carissa, who's another gifted medium and who I'm one day going to kidnap and force her to be my co-host on one of these podcasts. I love you, Sandy, but I really would love to pick Carissa. I love you, chopped liver, but I really would love
Yeah,
to
exactly.
pick Carissa's brain on some of this stuff, because it's new to me, right? So this client had a similar reading with Carissa, and her mom had come through then. And Carissa said, yes, all people in states of Alzheimer's, deep states of Alzheimer's. Her mom was still alive, but not really functioning too well, in a deep state of Alzheimer's, last end stages of Alzheimer's. And she's like, she said that people can come through like this. I'm like, this is wild. This is wild. Never experienced this. Very, very, very clear energy, very clear communication. So the thing with the cruise ship is that when they checked her mom into the nursing home, the memory care facility, her mom kept thinking that she was on a cruise ship, and she would go around and ask the staff, when are we docking?
Yeah.
When are we docking? Right? How adorable, right?
Yeah.
Adorable. This woman loves cruises. And I think when she's fully on the other side, that's where she's going to head. She's going to head on a cruise. So, so some of this stuff is just like, it kind of does blow my mind. I'm so used to just the psychic side, which is straight up information,
Mhm.
but this stuff, they get so creative with how they communicate. It's all charades, and references to, pop culture stuff that I might recognize. And they, reach into a bag of tricks, and they try and parse it out so that someone like me, who is not good at charades at all, can kind of get the meaning. And then kind of my last little anecdote, and we had talked about this earlier. I read for another mother who had lost her son to suicide fairly recently, actually. And he came through really, really just, sometimes you touch a soul and you just like, oh, like, oh, I love this person. And had depression. Sometimes depression is terminal. And so anyone out there who has ever lost a loved one to suicide, depression, Sandy and I have lost a cousin to that.
Yep.
There is this cultural implication that if you lose a relative to suicide, there probably was something you could have done to prevent it. And every time I touch someone who has committed suicide on the other side, number one, they seem really pretty okay, honestly, as this young man. He actually felt solid. No hint of depression or sickness or illness or even regret. There was no regret actually for having taken his life. The manner in which he was discovered was the thing that he regretted, because obviously someone had to find his body. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure who found him, but he regrets that he didn't think that part through. So lovely, lovely man. And the other hard part about tuning in for someone who has had a loved one they've lost to suicide is that there's so much guilt in the living, right? Because again, this cultural reference or this cultural thinking that they're somehow responsible, right? They should have seen the sign. They should have, paid closer attention. They should have gotten this person, I don't know, I don't know. And I have been in my lifetime, I have been so depressed that I have absolutely plotted suicide. I 100% like, moving stuff out of the garage, ready to drive the car in, kind of like that close. So I'm aware of the mindset when you are determined to go, ain't nobody going to stop you. Ain't nobody going to stop you. It's a mission. And it very much felt like that for this young man, that it was a mission. And had he somehow been prevented of taking his own life this time, he had contingency plans. So he had 2 backup plans beyond this. He was going to go. And the interesting, like it's difficult because I know there's a lot of emotion wrapped up from this mother and this and her son and the family who've lost a beloved member of their family. But from the outside, it is interesting to me how he was communicating with me. So she had mentioned right off the bat that her son had committed suicide because she wanted specifically to hear from him. So that wasn't something that I could say, oh, did he commit suicide? But when he was communicating with me, he kept waving a gun at, not pointing it at me, but waving a gun, right? Like murder. Okay. So that I have come to realize is a symbol of murder, but can also be about self-murder, right? Can also be about suicide. So he's waving a gun and then he's swinging a noose. And that threw me. I'm like, I don't understand. You shot yourself and then someone hung you? Like what's that deal, right? So he's just going back and forth, gun to noose, gun to noose. And then I just kind of took a stab at it. And I said, he committed suicide, but did he hang himself? And she said, yes. So again, it's this, I have to learn this language. I'm parsing it out. I'm learning it little bit by little bit. So that's a gift to me, right? It's, she's already told you the manner in which I've crossed over. And I want to give you a specific so that she knows it's me.
Yeah.
Which I love, I really love. I think that they work so hard to make sure you understand that consciousness survives. I just think that's so beautiful. So those are my anecdotes for this week. Okay. All right, let's get to this case is juicy. It's creepy. This case, honestly, this case gave me a little bit of the creeps. I don't know if it did for you, but yeah, it definitely gave me the creeps. So take it away.
So the reason that I brought this case forward is because it happened here in the city of Boston, which I've been a resident of for over 30 years. And I distinctly remember when this poor victim's body was discovered, because it was so gruesome, the manner in which this victim was discovered, that it has always stayed with me that this murder took place, that it was as grisly as it ended up being, and that it's never been solved.
Yeah.
So
we solved it.
Okay, then. So let me tell you the story of Karina Holmer. This case is 25 years old and it remains one of Boston's grisliest murders that is unsolved. And it begins with, after winning $1,500 in a lottery in her home country of Sweden, 19-year-old Karina Holmer loved travel so much that she spent her winnings on a plane ticket to Boston. Her mother reported that Karina was happy to be going to America, as she was excited to show her family that she could manage this trip on her own. Her last words to her family at the airport were, "I hope I'm doing the right thing." Karina arrived in Boston in March of 1996 from Skillingard, Sweden, to work as an au pair for a wealthy Dover couple, photographer Frank Rapp and his wife Susan Nichter. Her duties were to care for their 2 children and to do some light housework. With the job, Karina got to live in a gorgeous, picturesque suburban neighborhood Monday through Friday. And then on the weekends, as a bonus on top of her earnings, she could do as she pleased, including using the couple's downtown Boston loft while they were home with their children in Dover. Likable, intelligent, outgoing, and attractive, Karina quickly made friends with a group of Swedish au pairs working in similar situations in and around the Boston area. Together, they would party on the weekends, frequenting Boston nightclubs. On June 21st, 1996, Karina went out to Zanzibar, a popular nightclub at Boylston Place. It was a Friday night, and Karina and her friends were celebrating the summer solstice, which is a major holiday event in Sweden. She was wearing shiny black tight-fitting pants, a silver-colored shirt, and was carrying a small backpack-like purse. Over the course of the evening, the group consumed a substantial amount of alcohol. Left alone by her friends and intoxicated, Karina was seen trying to get back into the Zanzibar nightclub before it closed at 3 a.m. Sadly, she was last seen alive around 3:20 a.m. on Saturday in the area of Tremont Street and Boylston Place, which is not too far from the club. She was reported missing later that Saturday. The last moments of her life remain a mystery. Within 2 days, some of her remains were found. Part of her body was found stuffed in a trash bag in a dumpster behind an apartment building on Tremont Street in the Fenway Park area around 1:30 in the afternoon by a man searching for refundable bottles and cans. Police indicated that only Karina's torso had been found. The bottom half of her body had been cut off, possibly with a power saw, and was missing. Police believe that the saw may have been used to sever the body at the waist and that the killer may have been trying to cover up a sex crime. The upper part of Karina's body was fully drained of blood and washed clean, including the makeup off her face. An autopsy revealed that she died of strangulation at about 9 a.m. Saturday morning. In addition to her Nokia cell phone and purse, the lower part of her body has never been found. There appeared to be some turmoil in Karina's life at the time of her murder. Weeks before her death, she told her Boston-based friends that she wanted to return home to Sweden in August because she was unhappy. In letters home to friends Ulrika Stenson and Charlotte Sandberg, she disclosed that she was tired of the housework involved in her job as a nanny for the Dover couple's 2 young children. There's always so much cleaning and I think I'm stressed out all the time, so this is not exactly what I thought it would be. More ominously, she wrote to Svensson, "Something terrible has happened. I cannot tell you right now what it is, but I will tell you when I get home." Karina never got the chance to reveal what terrible thing had happened. If she was unhappy, Karina did not confide in her older sister, Johanna. Johanna said that Karina had not mentioned anything terrible, but did say she wanted to cut her stay in the US short. She had decided to come home earlier because she wanted to go somewhere else to travel and to work. Likewise, Karina showed no obvious discontent to the couple who hired her, Frank Rapp and Susan Nichter, according to their attorney, Martin Weinberg. The only physical evidence recovered with Karina's upper torso was a partial fingerprint on the torso's trash bag and the rope marks around her neck. Investigators, hampered by the absence of a crime scene and the rest of the body, focused on Zanzibar, the trendy nightclub where Karina and her friends had spent a night out, and where she had last been seen during the early hours of Saturday morning. Sources told Boston newspapers that police had seized a videotape from the club's security cameras that may have shown Karina's departure. The source said a man, described as in his 40s and muscular, who had a small dog with him, may have offered Karina a ride home. Witnesses were unclear if she had left with him. That man turned out to be a gentleman named Herb Witten of Andover, Mass., who happened to be walking his dog around 3 a.m. in the alley outside of Zanzibar. Allegedly, Herb routinely left his Andover home and to walk his dog, which is Andover is about 30 minutes north of the city, to walk his dog in the early morning hours around the city streets. At least that's what he told the Boston Police Department when questioned after Karina's body was found. Witten was easily identifiable as he and his dog sported matching Superman t-shirts. However, Witten had a very strong alibi for the night in question. He had received a speeding ticket that night on his way home from Boston. Police concluded that the timing of Witten's ticket did not fit the timeline of Karina's murder. Interestingly, Herb Witten committed suicide in 1997, a year after Karina's gruesome murder. Suspicion did not escape Karina's employers, Frank Rapp and his wife, Susan Nichter, due to an odd coincidence. On the night of Monday, June 24th, the day after Karina's body had been discovered, Dover first responders arrived at the Rapp-Nichter residence as a dumpster the couple shared with a few close neighbors had caught fire. After the fire was put out, the police examined the charred debris, but they were unable to draw any conclusions from what they found. Further, Rapp had a reputation of being kind of creepy by the other nannies that had worked for the couple. And most importantly, Rapp and his wife did not have an alibi for the night of the murder. Despite these questionable factors, the police did not consider the couple as strong suspects. Over time, the couple became hostile and stopped cooperating with investigators on all related matters. Two other suspects included a Boston police officer that Karina briefly dated before her murder, and a man named John Ziwis, a local industrial music musician who resided near to where Karina's body was found. Ziwis had a growing heroin habit, and his music routinely featured lyrics about S&M and bondage, but no charges were ever brought forth. Sadly, Karina's lottery-inspired U.S. adventure ended in horror and remains to this day a gruesome murder mystery. I think the thing that makes me so incredibly sad is that she left her country full of hope and excitement about coming here and never made it back home. Yeah. And it's just, that's why it stayed with me for so long and I think also what's really awful is that her family is in Sweden. So there's no one necessarily advocating for this cold case to have it sort of kind of be resolved. So that's why I thought it'd be fun for us. Well, not fun, but I thought it'd be interesting for us to investigate. My sources for this story included the Boston Globe, Boston.com, the AP News, and philosophyofcrime.com and mysteriesunsolved.com.
I am so glad you brought this case up because there's so much kind of strong energy surrounding it and impressions. What I tried to do is I just tried to read it. Just read it, right? Just absorb it, the facts kind of, and the chronology and all of that without kind of tuning in. And then I just took a minute and started writing down my impressions. And I started with the thought, describe the killer. And it was so interesting because it came so easily. It just was like, I didn't even have to reach for it. It was just like there. And so what I wrote down was tall, lean frame, blonde hair, brown eyes, 40s, mid 40s. He felt kind of tall. I know I said that, but like, I just kept feeling like she was small because you can see in pictures, she was small. And then this thought, aquiline nose. So I wrote it down, aquiline nose. And after I wrote it down, I'm like, okay, aquiline, is that like a Roman nose? Like, I was confused. Like, I didn't quite remember what an aquiline nose looked like. So I went online and I looked at it, and an aquiline nose, for those of you like me who don't know specifically what it is, it's a nose that has a prominent bridge, and it makes it look like it's turning down, almost like a beak. Doesn't have to be too prominent, but it just has like a curve down, right? So the description was so specific, and that aquiline nose thing just kept like almost, it just hit me as like, this is a detail that's interesting, right? So then I went and I started looking at, okay, so who are the suspects, right? And so I pulled up on the interwebs the couple, right? Because they were named as a suspect. I didn't think Whit, right? Was it Whit, the guy that
had
the
died
dog?
a year later? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get that he was connected to her disappearance or murder at all. I genuinely think he tried to do a kind thing. I think that walking his dog regularly at night was a thing for him. I think he struggled socially in life. And it would be interesting to see if his suicide a year later coincided with maybe even the death of his dog. Because I feel like that event had nothing to do with Karina. Had nothing to do with it.
Interesting.
Yeah. So his kind of involvement was just kind of peripheral for me.
Well, kind of coincidental, really. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
He happened to speak with her, and it's weird. He's out walking his dog at 3 a.m, and he's driven 30 miles to go into the city to walk his dog. Like, who does that?
Someone with depression, honestly, an introvert with depression. When I am struggling, when, the brain chemistry isn't cooperating, I will go for long runs. I'll go for long drives. There's just this almost meditative thing about being alone,
Mhm.
being in a bubble and alone and not easily contacted, not having someone say, hey, how are you? What do you do? Not engaging in conversation. So that made a lot of his personality and kind of his mannerisms and stuff might be atypical, but for me, knowing how an introvert acts and how someone with depression acts, that's normal to me. So that didn't
Well,
strike me as abnormal at all.
I think it's really interesting that you connected his suicide with the death of his dog. Like clearly they were,
But
very close. Yeah.
yeah, at the hip.
Yeah.
And I don't know if his dog.
Yeah. I don't either.
died,
I'm just saying that would make
but
sense why
right,
he committed
exactly,
suicide. Yeah.
exactly. I don't think it had anything to do with her death. But I think that from the outside, you look at that and you think, he's guilty,
Yeah.
right? No,
Yeah.
I didn't get that from him at all. Not at all. The description that I wrote down, though, fit perfectly with the husband.
Frank Rapp.
Yeah, Frank Rapp. Perfectly. Look him up, guys. I looked him up and saw his picture and my jaw dropped because it was almost exactly how I pictured him in my mind's eye. And he has an aquiline nose. And like I've seen several photos of him. Now I'm certainly not outright accusing this man. Okay. He's still alive. He's got a pretty successful photography business, but I find it really interesting that I went through the exercise, the sole intention of just literally describing the killer. And it is a description that pretty perfectly matches his. And, diving a little bit deeper into my impressions, this was actually even before I looked him up. I just wrote out all of my impressions. I felt that Karina I felt like she called. I felt like she called for help. That's why her Nokia phone is missing. And I feel like she called Rapp's wife. And I feel like she called at such an hour that, of course, his wife wasn't going to go into the city and pick her up. And so he went into the city and picked her up. And I felt very strongly that the whole creepy thing from other nannies, I think there's this feeling of it's just too well thought out, right? That whole murder is just too well thought out. It's almost serial killerish, right? Yeah. And so this isn't something where he's raping her or whatever, and is like choking her, and inadvertently kills her. This was planned. This was absolutely planned, just because the details of draining the blood, of washing her body, of removing her lower half. And you came up with a theory that was like, yes, that's it. That I'll let you share in a second. So for me, it felt like he had mentally been planning something like this for years and years. And he got the opportunity, and this was a golden opportunity for him, and he took it.
So, just not to step on you, but what's fascinating to me is they ended up employing a foreign au pair, someone from another country. I don't know if they'd had other nannies that were from other countries prior to this, but I think the golden opportunity presented itself because she had no ties here.
For sure. And she's vulnerable because she's, like you said, from another country. So she doesn't know anyone here. She doesn't have anyone to look out for her. She's completely reliant on them. She's out with friends, but obviously they weren't looking out for her. She got plastered, and they left her alone at 3 a.m. Like, what the fuck, people, So she really was kind of so vulnerable.
And only 19 years of age,
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And, to an extent, trusting.
Well, if you think about it, though, it looked like the perfect opportunity. She was given a quiet suburban, very safe employment, and then the ability to use a townhouse in the city on the weekends and freedom to do that.
It's like a dream come true for a 19-year-old. Yeah,
absolutely.
When it's really kind of a nightmare. And, situations like that, you also have to wonder, it's too good to be true, right? So there's planning there. Lure someone young from another country, set them up like they think that they've hit the lottery twice, right? And just wait for the opportunity, which she did. And was delivered to him in his lap. This is my theory. Okay. And then I got there's an impression of a structure in the woods. And I kept feeling like it's like a cottage, but it's unfinished. It's like a cottage, but it's unfinished. And then Sandy and I were talking, and she said, go ahead. You
I don't
said,
remember what I said.
oh, I don't know. Bambi caught in headlights here. Yeah, she's just looking at me like, don't do that to me again. When we were talking about the torso being drained of blood.
Right, correct. Yeah.
And you said,
I said that it takes a skill of like a hunter or someone
Bingo.
who's familiar with taxidermy to be able to do that so
Right.
so cleanly.
Right.
You know, forgive me, but it takes like I don't
skill.
think the average person. Yeah. Well, it's not even just skill. It's like the stomach for it. Like you have to be able to
for
tolerate
sure.
something that's dead and draining it of its blood. Like
fluids. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So when you said hunting, I was like, oh my God, unfinished cottage, hunting lodge. It's a hunting lodge, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of an hunting lodges are like, plywood, there's no insulation. There's no
comfort,
no comfort, none, right? It's just slapped together. So that for me made sense. The hunting lodge in the woods. I also feel like he committed this murder alone, but I feel like he didn't clean it up alone. And I don't know what his family structure is like. I don't know if he has any siblings, but there was a sense of like a brother figure. Probably was alerted to the fact that this happened and helped cover it up, because I feel like he took the torso. Someone took the torso and went one way, and the other person took the bottom half and went the other way. And why was she severed in two? You came up with that great, go ahead, Sandy's theory is.
Well, to me, it made sense that she might have been pregnant,
right.
So that you could get rid of any evidence whatsoever. But
another reason to drain the blood.
Right.
Exactly. Because if they had pulled a blood sample and could determine that she was pregnant, then they might have looked a little more closely at him, right? So you get rid of any evidence of any child, and you're good to go, right? The upper torso. I did not pick up that she was pregnant. However, I did feel that he was, as he was raping her, I felt like he was choking her into a state of unconsciousness and then allowing her to come back. And this like went on. Choke, allow her to kind of breathe again, or come out of unconsciousness, and then do it all over again. That he got off on this, right? This kind of power of holding her life in his hands. And then, he went too far, obviously, but he was always intending to go too far because, again, the cover up was so detailed and planned. Yeah. So he intended to murder her, but I think he wanted to stretch it out sickly and sadistically. I think he wanted to stretch it out. I think she said, "Don't kill me, I'm pregnant." I think he raped her before. And I think that this was the follow-up. And I think she said, "I'm pregnant." And the reason that I don't think she was pregnant was, number one, I didn't pick it up in the ether. There just wasn't that feel. And when people are pregnant, there is a specific feeling, for lack of their energy is a little bit heavier because they're kind of carrying another soul. So I didn't get that at all. I think that she told him that, and that he then made sure that it couldn't be traced back to her. And the other reason,
evidence. Yeah. Right. No DNA, nothing.
Exactly.
Nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. Very efficient. And the other reason I didn't think that she was pregnant is because she's a nanny. She loves kids. She's in a nightclub. She gets completely blasted. She's not going to do that to a fetus. I just didn't feel like she was going to do that to a fetus. It just didn't fit the personality that I felt like I was touching on. So I felt that the quote unquote confession, "I'm pregnant," was an attempt to save her own life, because she knew, he takes her to a hunting lodge. And again, this is all theory, this is what is coming through to me in the ether. I'm not necessarily saying this guy absolutely 100% did it. However, I find it very interesting that I drop a description and come up with all of this stuff. And it'd be interesting to see if there's any thread or any ability to trace if he had any brothers, if the brothers were hunters, if there was a hunting lodge anywhere near where they would go hunting. Maybe he didn't go hunting. Maybe, I took a look at this guy's Twitter feed, and he's very much an advocate for animal rights. I don't know. These were just my impressions. So I'm going to
Well, it'd be also interesting to see if that phone call actually got made to
the wife
at 3 in the morning or so.
Yeah. I don't think that she called him. I think she called the wife, because I think that she was hoping the wife was going to come get her, not the husband. And the husband showed up, and, it's 3 a.m. She's alone. She's abandoned. She's already probably encountered someone she considered creepy who wanted to give her a ride home.
Right.
And so you're going to get in the car, your judgment's off. You're creeped out. You're scared. You're going to get in the car. Even though I believe, had already sexually assaulted her.
So that was something terrible that has happened potentially, that she referenced in her letter.
That's my thinking.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, that's my thinking. Poor love. So that's a tragically sad story. We hate it when beautiful, young, promising women especially lose their lives. And it's always women, right, that die in this fashion. Sucks.
And so grotesquely dealt with, like just very inhuman.
So
very
brutally
inhuman.
violent. Yeah.
Brutally violent and very inhuman.
Yeah.
When you drain the victim of blood and go to saw it in half. I mean, my God. Who has the stomach for that? I
don't honestly, I don't know.
And then the dumpster fire. I think we discussed that the other day.
The dumpster fire. Exactly. Yeah. I think that there were some of her clothes. I don't think that there was blood on the clothes, because again, I feel that she was strangled. Right. So I think that her clothes were removed prior to, because when they did the search through the dumpster, the forensics team didn't discover any blood. That's what they were looking for specifically, was any
bone
evidence of body parts or blood, and they couldn't find any. So I feel like the clothes were burned there.
So would his clothes likely would have been burned as well, though. If he was burning clothes, I would assume he burned his own plus hers.
Yeah, but his clothes probably would have had blood on them. So I don't know. I felt like her lower half too. I felt like her lower half ended up in the water, and it didn't feel like it ended up in a lake or in a river. It felt like ocean. There's too much current associated with the feeling of her lower half ending up somewhere. So I don't think there's never going to be a trace of her lower half, I think, discovered ever. I think it's bottom of the ocean somewhere. The fish have dealt with it. That kind of thing, very, very sadly. But, you really feel for this family. They have this, they lost their daughter, and there's no justice. And, the poor people.
Well, they didn't even have the resources necessarily to follow up on it, because if she won a lottery ticket to pay for her flight here, then yeah.
And she came from a small village, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah. So, horrible way to lose your daughter. Horrible way to lose your daughter. And that's its own tragedy, separate from losing your daughter, the manner in which she died.
Yeah.
And the subsequent injustice, justice denied. I don't know how you weather that as a parent. So, really interesting case, Sandy. Thank you so much for bringing it forward.
Well, I appreciate the input in terms of what you think might have happened. It sort of gives
it's a theory that has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah, exactly. To a story that has sort of always stayed with me and bothered me.
Yeah.
And that there really isn't any information with respect to it. So it's really interesting to have, like you said, a beginning, middle, and an end now.
Right.
It's
Potentially. It's like the story of her demise versus just a bunch of question marks. So I don't know if obviously it's a cold case. I don't know if anybody ever looks at it, takes a look at it, but it was my impression that there still is a thread that links back And I kind of think it might be that phone call.
Yeah.
I don't know if the police have already looked at that. I would imagine they have, I would imagine they're pretty thorough. However, it's 1995. I don't know what phone records, cell phone records are going to show back from back then. But I just feel like there's still one thread that leads back.
Well, I'm also curious about that fingerprint that was found on one of the garbage bags.
Right.
Yeah.
That I feel could have been the family member. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I feel one person killed her and had help covering it up. Because it's just too detailed. And the timing's too tight. She went missing Friday night and her body was discovered Sunday morning.
So her body, so she was last seen at 3 a.m. on Saturday.
Okay.
And the body was discovered at 1:30 in the afternoon on Sunday.
Yeah. So that's 18 hours later, something like that. That's not a lot of time.
No.
So
it was very planned out. I agree with you. It was very, very well planned out, which is even more chilling.
Right. If it were a serial killer, we would see, like, I think similar stories, right, in that area, because it's Boston, right? Shit like that hits the papers.
Yeah.
So I think this was a fantasy that was well thought out for years and just waiting for an opportunity, and the opportunity came and they took it. But I feel like they had already kind of thought, this is what I'm going to do. I don't know if the draining of the blood and the cutting the body in half was actually part of it. But that's someone who can think on the fly pretty quickly. So that's also pretty chilling, pretty scary. So poor Karina. We'll say a little prayer for her.
Definitely.
Okay. Are there any questions from the fans? Do we have anything like that this week? Nope, you didn't. Okay, cool. No problem. You're like, Victoria, we talked about this earlier. I don't remember. It's been a busy couple days.
Yes.
Let me see if I can think of any question that I saw. I think one of the things that gets asked of me as an intuitive, if like you could sit down and interview an intuitive and you could ask that intuitive questions that didn't pertain to your future or your loved ones. One of the things that is sort of an assumption is that we walk around kind of a reservoir for all sorts of information hitting us, constantly, right? Like we're in a
receptive mode constantly.
An asteroid field of go, that is such a myth. At least for me, and for most of the intuitives that I know, most of the professional psychics I know, we go to the grocery store just fine. We interact with people just fine. I make it a point, if it's someone that I'm dating or someone that I'm going out with, I make it a point not to look at their energy, because I feel it's really an invasion of privacy. And that can prove frustrating for me, because sometimes I'm like, what's in his head? But it's a rule that I kind of really stick to. And I think it's a healthy rule, actually. And like for you, sometimes you have to precurse a question to me. Like I'm not asking you to tune in. Right. And there's a definite, if someone asks me a question, that can be answered using my intuition, it gets triggered. It just boom gets triggered, which is what is so fucking annoying. Actually, when people know that I'm a psychic and they kind of sabotage that, they just kind of like throw it at me. Even though my intuition goes out and grabs the answer, I won't tell you. I absolutely 100% won't tell you, because that's just bullshit, right? It's bullshit. Respect.
It's like asking a doctor, look, I got this bump here.
Exactly.
It's a cocktail party, but
exactly. It's so fucking rude. It's just so fucking rude. But it's even worse because my intuition goes, right? And it's almost like they kind of spring it on me and I don't have a chance to put up the defense. And I think that's why I so love you for many reasons. But I love you because you have just so much respect for my intuition, and you know how it works, and you know how frustrated I get when people sabotage me like that. And so when you precurse a question with, don't tune in on this. I'm just asking for your sisterly advice,
Yes.
right? That's super, super helpful. But in general, I'm not walking around, a reservoir of information from the ether. No dead people are coming up to me in the grocery store and saying, say hello to my husband. That just is not happening. I lead a very normal, boring life, honestly, super boring. No, I'm serious, like super boring. I'm an introvert. I like to work out. I like to run. I like to write. I like to talk to my clients. I like to talk to my sister. I'm not like, life of the party. That is not
The limo doesn't pull up daily to the residence.
not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet.
The red carpet does not get rolled out, and there's no one going through your
Where's
closet.
my helicopter? Where is it? He's late again. Yeah, no, there's no,
No one's curating your closet for you.
White House black market is actually at this moment. Yes.
Okay. Excellent.
A sale? So that's I think the biggest misnomer is that, and you must get so tired, you must get so drained. And I will tell you, the pulling information out of the ether is not a taxing thing for me, especially. What is a taxing thing for me when I'm doing the mediumship stuff, and this is because this is kind of new and I'm really working at it. It's the focus and concentration that it takes to figure out the clues that are being presented to me. The game of charades, that's what's taxing. So as I get better, I would expect that it's not going to be as difficult, but it's not necessarily, there isn't someone draining my energy, from the other side, or clients are necessarily draining my energy. It definitely is work. Don't get me wrong. It's work, but it's not something that I'm like, oh my God, I must take 12 hours to recover from that.
Yeah. Where's my cold compress?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I need a drink. I need a drink and a compress.
For sure. Where's my margarita? Yeah. We're doing a cocktail. We're doing like a cocktail podcast, right? Didn't we talk about that? We're doing like a cocktail.
Here's how this went down. Victoria says, we should do a cocktail podcast. And Sandy says, okay, I don't drink, but sure, let's do that.
Yeah,
no
whatever. Yeah. We'll load you up with a little glass, a tiny glass of wine. I'm going to have
a chocolate margarita.
No, actually, no. No, I'm not. I'm not going to have it.
That sounds so foul.
They're actually delicious.
A chocolate margarita? Really? Or martini?
No,
chocolate martini.
It's a martini. Chocolate martini. Yes. Yeah. No, I think we'll do, there's a William Sonoma kind of cocktail book. And they have like, oh my God, their recipes are like, there's a sage grapefruit gimlet that me and a friend of mine pretty much destroyed a bottle of gin. It was a fun night. Let me tell you, it was a fun night. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So we'll pick a themed cocktail for our podcast around the holidays. Try not to come up with a gruesome story, but maybe something that is holiday in spirit or holiday
or happened around the holidays.
Around the holidays. Yeah. So we'll focus on that for
just because we're just happy. This is just a happy podcast. We're just spreading the love. Spreading the love out there. Yeah. Well, it's interesting, right? It's interesting. Like it's morbidly kind of interesting. So if you're into kind of psychic stuff and murder stuff, like we are, if you're weird.
No, you are. I'm still.
You're liar. You're so into it, Sandy. You're so into it. You're like, I found one. Yeah, whatever. Talk to the hand, baby. Talk to the hand. All right. Well, you can find me at victorialaurie.com. If you want to schedule an appointment, that's where you go and click the schedule appointment button. There's a button. You can also go to penpodcast.com. Not a lot of information on there because I'm using big air quotes. I'm building that website. So it's like, well, I have an hour to kill. Technology is just not my thing. It's just not my thing. But I'm trying to force myself to learn new things. So this is one of those things that I'm trying to force myself to learn. So you can go to PEMpodcast.com or Victoria Laurie, LAURIE is my last name, .com to find out all about moi. It's scintillating reading, let me tell you. Books are on there, book an appointment on there, all of that good stuff. Okay. So
Sign up for your newsletter.
oh yeah, you can sign up for my newsletter, any kind of announcements. I usually do a 6-month prediction, like a sort of global national kind of more national 6-month prediction newsletter that comes out late December, early January. I am not sure that I will have time because there's a lot on the plate right now to do that in the next 3 weeks. So it might be mid-January. So it's a good newsletter, announcing books that are coming out. You can read the series that was inspired by my sister, the Life Coach Mysteries. Oh, come on, we love Kat. We love Kat and Gilly.
She's nothing like me.
She is in the Kat Gilly book. She's so you, please.
All right. Anyway, so for next time.
All right, Sandy, I love you, love you, love you, love you. Don't say ditto. I love you. I know, don't do it. And we will see you here next week. Same time, same station, the whole thing. All right. Thanks for joining us. All right. Have a great week, guys. Okay.
Bye.
Love you. Mean it. Bye.